very important topic of Python or any programming language, functions. So what are functions? Functions are basically just a placeholder for some certain instructions or certain code so that we can use that code in many different places again and again by just calling that function. Okay, I will tell you everything, what is function, what is how to call it, and everything in today's video. We will talk in detail about the functions. So let's do practical on it. There's nothing in theory about it. Okay, practical is much better in programming languages. So let's go to Spider ID and see what this function is. Okay, so functions. Now to define a function, like to create a placeholder for all those instructions, we use a keyword called def, def. Now this is a keyword which says whatever we are going to write after it is the name of a function. So now we will write, let's say, let's create our function underscore 1. Okay, this is our function and we put it inside of parentheses. And as we are writing a code inside of a function, obviously we have to put an indentation. We have to write it inside of indentation so that a interpreter can identify that this code comes under the function section. And we are using indentation, and it is a function. We also have to use colon over here. Okay, so let's write a code. Let's say print hello world. Okay, now this is function declaration and definition. We have declared a function and we have defined our function, written print hello world inside of it. Now if we want to call this function somewhere in the program, like there's a big program, and somewhere we want to call this function, all we have to do is write the name of the function. Okay, so and parenthesis, that's it. Okay, now let's run this much. Let's see what happens. Now see, you see in the output screen you can see our function run and it printed hello world. If we run this much only, let's see what happens. F9, nothing happens. It didn't print hello world, it didn't print any output. But when we call this function, when we call it, it printed hello world. So what happens here, whenever we call this function, it goes to this def here. It sees this is a function and it printed it. Whatever is inside of it, it does the processing of it. It interprets all those code. Now here we have written only print hello world, so it printed the hello world, and here we have the output. Now this is a simple basic function, but in function we can also, now this is a function, let's give it some kind of an argument. Argument is a value that we pass inside of a function. Okay, let's say write her name over here. Okay, and let's do some modification over here and write name. Okay, so what we did, we are going to pass a value inside of a function. Right now in previous we have made just a basic function, but now we are passing a value inside of a function. Okay, now let's pass a value. Let's say Maverick over here. Okay, let's pass this value inside of a function and see what happens. Now again, we run this program. First run this function. Nothing happened. It didn't printed anything because it don't know what is going on right now. It just defined itself. Now when we call the function, now it knows what needs to happen over there. It says function Maverick. I passed the value Maverick. It printed hello Maverick. You know, string concatenations we've talked about earlier. Now it concatenated the string and printed the value hello Maverick. Now this is the arguments. Now there are two keywords that are basically two words that are used in functions. Those are parameter and argument. Now these, don't get confused with these two words. They have almost similar meaning, but they are not similar. Now if we talk about this function here, this function hour, now here this name, whatever we write inside of these parentheses becomes a parameter. This is a parameter. Okay, and whatever the value we are passing, this Maverick value that we are passing, is an argument. So a parameter stores the argument, and then whatever we are using inside of it, this is a parameter over here. Okay, we are using this function parameter over here. So don't get confused with these two things, parameter and argument. Okay, parameter is whatever we are writing by inside of parentheses while defining the function, and argument is whatever we are passing the value. Okay, so don't get confused with it. Now we have to remember one thing. Now let's say we have there's only one parameter over here, and let's pass two values. Let's say any name. Let's say Yash. Now let's run this program. F9. And you see here we've got an error. Function 1 takes one positional argument, but two were given. Now here it says, now this here function 1 takes only one argument because we have given it one parameter only, but we are providing it two arguments. So this is an error. So mind this thing, if we are providing two arguments, we have to give here two variables, one name1 comma name2, and then write on the print, or we can adjust in this one only. Let's say plus and kind plus name slash 2. Okay, now let's run it. Hello Maverick and Yash. We haven't given the space over here, so we provided a space, and then it will work perfectly fine. Hello Maverick and Yash. Okay, so the number of arguments you are giving, we have to see that there should be that many of the parameters, but sometimes we don't know how many arguments we are going to pass inside of a function. We don't know how many arguments we are going to pass. So what are we going to do in that case? Like suppose we don't know how many arguments we are going to pass over here. So all you have to do is write asterisk before name. Now this is called arbitrary argument in this case. Now we don't know how many arguments we are going to pass, so we create an arbitrary argument and we put it like this. Now what it does, it creates name1 as a tuple. Now when it is a tuple, then we have to print it like a tuple. We have to say 0, or okay, wait a minute, let's undo it all. Okay, now put asterisk over here, and this created a tuple. Name1 now becomes a tuple, so print it like a tuple. 0 1. Now if we print it, let's say it's saying some kind of a undefined name2. Yeah, okay, now there's no name2, there's only name1. Now if we print it, let's see what happens. Again it says hello Maverick and Yash over here. Okay, so now I don't know how many arguments I was about to pass in that function. Sometimes I have to pass only one argument, sometimes I have to pass two arguments, sometimes I have to pass number of arguments. I don't know how many arguments I'm going to pass. So what we do, we can create an arbitrary argument over here, arbitrary parameter, sorry, and now this is going to accept as many arguments as possible because it creates a tuple of infinite size. So how many of you want to put inside of it, you can put it. And this is a like a special thing inside of a Python. No other languages support this kind of a function. Okay, maybe some languages which I don't know, but not general languages. And this is a very good feature inside of Python that you can use. Okay, this is an arbitrary argument. Now let's talk about something more different. Okay, now let's move this arbitrary thing out from here and tuple stuff. Okay, now let's say I passed only one argument and I have given it two parameters. Okay, but I have to pass only one argument, but I have given two parameters. Now let's see what happens. F9. It says, gives an error again. It says function 1 missing one required positional argument, name2. Now what it's saying is, okay, I'm getting a value in name1 as Maverick, but I'm not getting any value in name2. Name2 is empty right now. You need to give some argument inside of a name2 too. So what are we gonna do in this case? Now most of the cases we have to pass only one value, but there are two arguments we have defined in the function. So what we do is we give it our default value over here. Let's give it a default value. Let's say yes only. Yes. Okay. So now what happens when we run this program? Now it will accept one value from here, Maverick, and second value it will take from the yes. But this is a default value. Let's say if we write another function over here, fevents. Okay. And let's give one value here, Maverick, and second value let's give Harsh. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Let's run this code function. Okay. And now run this code. Now it says hello Maverick and Harsh. It ignored this yes over here that we have passed default in the inside of function. It ignored it because this thing is used only in the default situation when the argument is not passed in name2 or in any parameter. When an argument is not passed inside of it, then only it accepts this default value. If an argument is passed inside of a variable, inside of a parameter, then it will not accept this default value. It will use the argument that is being passed. So keep that in mind. When you are passing an argument, it will not accept the default value. It will only accept the default value when an argument is not passed to its parameter. Okay, so now let's move on to our next thing. Now this is the function. Now we are still missing one important thing inside of a function, and that is called as you can see right now we are directly printing whatever is inside of the function. We are not storing these values. We are not storing this concatenated string hello Maverick and Harsh. We are not storing it somewhere. Now what if we want to store it? Now we don't want to print it right now. We want to store it in some variable. How are we gonna do it? So to do this kind of a thing, we instead of writing print, we write return. Okay, so what it does is it returns whatever the value is inside of that function. So and to accept the value in a main program, we give it any variable. Let's say it's a string, so let's say str1 equals to function 1 Maverick and Harsh. Now if we run this program, F9, okay, function defined perfectly, and now you see when we call the function inside of a variable string1, now see here in the variable section, the value of str1 becomes hello Maverick and Harsh. What we did is we passed this whole concatenated value inside of a string bring into the main function. Now whatever variable, okay, if we are talking about this, let me make you clear one thing over here. Now whatever variables we create, let's say if we would have written it like this, y is equals to, okay, hello, and whatever we have written it here, we can print it inside if we say print y, okay, brackets obviously. Okay, now if we run this program F9 and for this function call it, now you see here it printed hello no, hello Maverick and Harsh, okay, because we have given print y over here. But if we remove print y from here and write it outside of the function, let's write it here, print y, and now let's print y and let's see what happens. F9, name y is not defined. So now between a function is it's like an outer part of a program. It is not included inside of the program. Now whatever the variables we will create inside of a function are called as local variables. Now they will only work inside of a function. If you come out of the function, now those variables have no existence, no value out of the function. That's why inside of a function it was printing y just fine. print y. It was printing its value and it was giving us the answer of it. Okay, when we call this function, it was giving us the value. But when we generally run it print y, there was no value inside of a y. Okay, y was empty because this y is a local variable. Its existence is only limited to its function. It has no value outside of a function, outside of its function. So remember this thing. Okay, don't get confused that I declared y over here. Why it is not giving the value y here in the program, main program. Okay, so don't get confused with it. Now we were talking about return statement. So what happens with the return? We write return over here. Okay, and when we run this, let's run this function again, F9, and when we call this function, okay, not this one, sorry, we are storing here str1. When we call it, now it stores a value str1 inside of a function. Whatever the function returns, it returns hello plus name value inside of a name1 and value in the name inside of a name2. So what becomes hello Maverick and Harsh. Now what it did, it returned this value and stored it inside of str1. Now we can use this str1 inside of our main program and we can say print str1 and run it. Now it printed the value hello Maverick and Harsh. So now if you want some kind of a value of a program, of a function inside of a main program, we use this return function. Now return, in by the word return only you can understand what it is, the task of it. It is returning the value of a function in the main program. This is it. This is all the return, all about return is the task of return. Okay. Now when we were talking about loops, we talked about this keyword called, let's remove, okay, let's keep it. We talked about a keyword called pass. When we were talking about break and continue, we talked about pass keyword. Now this again the same thing what pass used to do in the for loop and a while loop. It's the main it does same thing inside of here, so that we can, whenever we are creating a function, we can tell interpreter that we will write the code later on. Right now you just run it. Later on we will write the code inside of function. Don't give me an error. That's why we use pass away. The same thing whatever we do it in the for loop, same thing pass does over here. Okay. Now let's make a some kind of a function over here. Now okay, let's create our own function. Okay, let's remove all of it. Okay, let's create a function of adding integers, adding two integers. So now if we want to add two integers, what we will do, we will write def, let's make a function name add. Okay, and remember the name of the function has to be in small letters. Okay, it should not be in capital letters. Def add, and let's give it two numbers and 1 comma and 2. Okay, we give it two parameters and return n1 plus n2. Okay, so what happened here, we are going to pass two values inside of this function and it will return me n1 plus n2, the addition of those two numbers. Now let's call this function um, and store it in let's say, and we'll store it in sum is equals to add, and let's give it any values 1 comma 2. Okay, now let's run this program F9, and you see here in the variable section the value of the sum becomes 3. Okay, let's print 3 out, print also print sum. Now let's run it again. Let's give it different values, let's say 20. Okay, now if we run it, here we say gets answer 22. Now this is how we create our own function. Now whatever the add function, the inbuilt add functions inside the Python program, it has uses this concept only to add two integers. Okay, we can add number of integers we want by using we talked about arbitrary argument. We can just put here asterisk here and we can give it any number of arguments we want, and we can return those, the addition of all those numbers. Okay, this is how we can create our own functions. Now When we are talking about functions, these are also called, right now we were calling the function outside of main function. In the main program we were calling that function. How about we call that function inside of the function? Let's say, uh, let's create a function. I will tell you with a practical example of it. Let's find out the sum of first 10 integers from 1 to 10. If you want to find that integer of first 10 values, how are we gonna do it? Now let's say def. If we are finding the sum of first 10 integers, let's say sum and n for first 10 integers. Okay, now let me write the program. I will explain the whole program later. If n equals to 1, return 1, else return n plus sum n minus 1. Okay, and now we will call this function. Let's store it in some variable, sum1 equals to sum, and we are finding the sum of first 10 numbers, so we will give it 10. Okay, now let's run it. Let's see what happens. F9, and you see here the value of sum1 is 55. The sum of first 10 integers is 55. Oh wait, okay, let's print it out to print sum1, and let's print it F9, and here output also is 55. Okay, now let's see what we did in this program. You can see here we call the function the way we have written it over here, the same way we have written it here. We call the function inside of a function. Okay, we haven't come out of the function, we are still inside of the indentation part, and we have called this function. So let's see what is going on over here. How we are not using any loop, we are only passing one value 10 over here, and still it is printing us the complete sum from 10 to 1. How it is happening? Okay, so what we did here is we created a function. Now, okay, we will talk about this if section later. Let's first talk about else section. Okay, now this whole concept is called a recursion. Recursion means doing something again and again in a loop. Okay, you can also call it as kind of a synonym of a loop. Okay, now this is a loop of a function. When you call a function inside of a function, then that function is also being called inside of a function again and again until you put some kind of a breaking point, and this if is a breaking point. Okay, so what happened here is basically, if you have watched Inception movie, you would have seen there's like there goes in dream inside of a dream. They keep on creating dreams inside of a dream. Okay, same thing is here. We are creating function inside of a function, and then again going deep, deep, deep. Basically, we have given a 10 value here. According to here, we are going 10 times deep inside of a function. Okay, so let's see what happened over here. What we did, we call the function. Okay, we gave it a value 10. 10 value goes to this n here parameter. Now it comes to the if point, our stopping point. This is called stopping. Let me write it over here. This is our stopping point, because if we don't give a stopping point, then this loop will keep on running, even go to infinite. We have to provide some kind of a stopping point over here, and this is the stopping point that when n becomes 1, you have to stop. You have to come back out of the loops. Okay, because we are calculating from 1 to 10 only now, right? And started from 10, then we have to stop at 1. Okay, so this is our stopping point. Then what we did, we come to else part, and what we returned is n plus sum n minus 1. Now n has the value 10, but it couldn't return it because there is a function called over here, and it again went inside of the function. Okay, so there was an outer function which is this whole, and then a function is called over here. Here a function is called, and then it created its own like a virtual function and went again inside of this function. Okay, so now there are two functions running. One is an outer function, and the same function is running inside of that outer function. Okay, so earlier the value of n was 10, and this time whatever the 10 minus 1, 9 was sent back to this function over here in this parameter. Okay, now again it checked 9 is equal to 1, false. it again comes back to else. Now previously there was n is equal to 10. Now this time n is 9. So total equation what become here? Let's write it here to understand more clearly. Earlier it was 10 plus sum uh, and minus 1. Okay, earlier at first stage it was this 10 plus sum and minus 1. Now the value of sum and minus 1 what we get when we come to the return point again, it becomes, I'm sorry, now n minus 1 was 10 minus 1 9. The value of the n becomes this time 9, and it comes back, it gives the value here 9 plus sum n minus 1. Okay, and again this there is a sum n minus 1, again the function is called, again it went back inside. This time value of n was 9, so 9 minus 1 8, and now the value of the n will become 8. Again it will check for the stopping point, false. Again it will come back here, and again the value of sum will be 8 plus sum and minus 1, and will keep on happening. It will keep on happening again and again, same like this for 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4. Every time it will check for the stopping point, situation will be false, it will come back here, and plus 3 plus 2. Okay, now plus 2 plus sum n minus 1. Up to here it comes. Now see what happened. Now this time the value of the n was 2. Okay, n plus sum n minus 1, value of n was 2. So this time the function is called at 2 minus 1 1. Now the value of this n will become 1. Okay, so it will come here at the stopping point, it will see 1 is equal to 1, it will return 1. So what happens now, this value, this sum n minus 1 will convert into 1 only. Now what we have written over here, like see 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, and this whole is 55, we know. Okay, we have run it. Now this is called recursion, or you can say a function being called inside of a function. Okay, now this is all in Python. Okay, one thing I want to warn you about this recursion is, now you see this is all really a complicated stuff, right? You have to put a lot of brain to understand or to debug a recursion program. So mostly people don't use recursions, but yeah, this makes program a little bit easy. If you are you are good in programming, you can understand the code easily. It will make your coding real easy. Okay, it will shorten your code, make it look more elegant and clean, but yeah, at the same time it will increase the complexity, or you can say, means not increase the complexity, basically it decreases the complexity of the program. It will only be difficult to understand. Like if someone else is reading the program, it will take some time for him to understand the recursion. This was a basic recursion, okay, program. We understood it very easily, but there are lots of complicated recursions programs. Okay, like if you want to create a factorial, all we have to do is put an into over here, it will create a factorial. You need to practice to try it by yourself, create a factorial out of this recursion. Okay, so be aware of it. Okay, recursions are really a complicated programs. It means they are hard to understand. So this is all about functions. Okay, if you didn't understand anything, just put it in the comment section, we will immediately help you as soon as possible. So see you in next video.